Namaste, Dhanava Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3, the Status Quo, Chapter 16, Text 12. Tanmesva Bhartur Abasayam Alakshamano Yusmad Vyati Kramagatim Pratipadya Sadhya Bhuyo Mamantikam Itam Tad Anugrahome Yat Kalpatam Achirato Pritayor Vivasha. These servants of mine have transgressed against you, not knowing the mind of their master. I shall therefore deem it a favor done to me if you order that, although reaping the fruit of their transgression, they may return to my presence soon, and the time of their exile from my abode may expire before long. Purport. From this statement, we can understand how anxious the Lord is to get his servitor back into Vaikuṇṭha. Therefore, this incident proves that those who have once entered a Vaikuṇṭha planet can never fall down. The case of Jaya and Vijaya is not a fall down. It is just an accident. The Lord is always anxious to get such devotees back again to the Vaikuṇṭha planets as soon as possible. It is to be assumed that there is no possibility of a misunderstanding between the Lord and the devotees. But when there are discrepancies or disruptions between one devotee and another, one has to suffer the consequences, although that suffering is temporary. The Lord is so kind to his devotees that he took all the responsibility for the doormen's offense and requested the sages to give them facilities to return to Vaikuṇṭha as soon as possible. Text 13. Brahmo Vatra Atatasyo Satim Devim Rishi Kulyam Sarvasvatim Nasvadya Manyudastanam Tisham Atma Pyatrapyata. Brahma continued, even though the sages had been bitten by the serpent of anger, their souls were not satiated with hearing the Lord's lovely and illuminating speech, which was like a series of Vedic hymns. 14. Satim Vyadhaya Shrinvanto Lagvim Gurvarta Gavaram Vigyagadha Gambiram Navidus Tachchakirsitam. The Lord's excellent speech was difficult to comprehend because of its momentous import and its most profound significance. The sages heard it with wide open ears and pondered it as well, but although hearing, they could not understand what he intended to do. Purport. It should be understood that no one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead in speaking. There is no difference between the Supreme Lord and his speeches, for he stands on the absolute platform. The sages tried with wide open ears to understand the words from the lips of the Supreme Lord, but although his speech was very concise and meaningful, the sages could not completely comprehend what he was saying. They could not even comprehend the purport of the speech or what the Supreme Lord wanted to do, nor could they understand whether the Lord was angry or pleased with them. Text 15. Te yoga maya yarabda paramestya mahodayam prochu pranjala yovipra prahashritakshu bitatvacha. The four Brahmana sages were nevertheless extremely delighted to behold him, and they experienced a thrill throughout their bodies. They then spoke as follows to the Lord, who had revealed the multi-glories of the Supreme Personality through his internal potency, Yogamaya. The sages were almost too puzzled to speak before the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the first time, and the hairs on their bodies stood erect due to their extreme joy. The highest opulence in the material world is called paramestya, the opulence of Brahma. But that material opulence of Brahma, who lives on the topmost planet within this material world, cannot compare to the opulence of the Supreme Lord, because the transcendental opulence in the spiritual world is caused by Yogamaya, whereas the opulence in the material world is caused by Mahamaya. Text 16. Rishaya uchu Navayam Bhagavan Vidmas Tavadeva Chikirshitam Krito Menu Grahascheti Yad Adhyaksha Prabhashase. The sages said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are unable to know what you intend for us to do. For even though you are the supreme ruler after all, you speak in our favor as if we had done something for you. Purport. The sages could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is above everyone, was speaking as if he were in the wrong. Therefore, it was difficult for them to understand the words of the Lord. They could understand, however, that the Lord was speaking in such a humble way just to show them his all-merciful favor. Text 17. Pramanyasya param daivam brahmana kilate prabho vipranam deva devanam bhagavan atma daivatam. O Lord, you are the supreme director of the Brahminical culture. You're considering the Brahmanas to be in the highest position as your example for teaching others. Actually, you are the supreme worshipable deity, not only for the gods, but also the Brahmanas also. Purport. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. There are undoubtedly many demigods, the chief of whom are Brahma and Shiva. Lord Vishnu is the Lord of Brahma and Shiva, not to speak of the Brahmanas in this material world. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord is very favorable toward all activities performed according to Brahminical culture, or the qualities of control of the senses and mind, cleanliness, forbearance, faith in the scriptures, and practical and theoretical knowledge. The Lord is the super soul of everyone. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord is the source of all emanations. Thus, he is also the source of Brahma and Shiva. Text 18. Vata sanatano dharmo rakshate tanu bistava dharmasya paramo guyo nirvikaro bhavanmata. Dandavat pranam. Translation. You are the source of the eternal occupation of all living entities, and by your multi-manifestations of personalities of Godhead, you have always protected religion. You are the supreme objective of religious principles, and in our opinion, you are inexhaustible and unchangeable eternally. Purport. The statement in this verse, Dharmasya Paramo Guya, refers to the most confidential part of all religious principles. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion of Lord Krishna and his advice to Arjuna is, give up all other religious engagement and just surrender unto me. This is the most confidential knowledge in executing religious principles in the Bhagavatam. Also, it is stated that if one does not become Krishna conscious after very rigidly executing one's specified religious duties, all his labor in following so-called religious principles is simply a waste of time. Here also, the sages confirm the statement that the Supreme Lord, not the demigods, is the ultimate goal of all religious principles. There are many foolish propagandists who say that the worship of the demigods is also a way to reach the supreme goal. But in the authorized statements of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, this is not accepted. Bhagavad Gita says, Bhagavad Gita says that one who worships a particular demigod can reach the demigod's planet, but one who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead can enter into Vaikuṇṭha. Some propagandists say that regardless of what one does, he will ultimately reach the supreme abode of the Personality of Godhead, but this is not valid. The Lord is eternal, the Lord's servitor is eternal, and the Lord's abode is also eternal. They are all described as sanatana, or eternal. The result of devotional service, therefore, is not temporary, as is the achievement of heavenly planets by worshiping the demigods. The sages wanted to stress that although the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, says that he worships the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, actually the Lord is worshipable not only by the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, but also by the demigods. Text 19. Paranti hyanjasa mrityam nivrittayad anugrahat yogina sabhavan kim svid anugriyeta yatparai. Mystics and transcendentalists, by the mercy of the Lord, cross beyond nescience by ceasing all material desires. It is not possible, therefore, that the Supreme Lord can be favored by others. Purport. Unless one is favored by the Supreme Lord, one cannot cross over the ocean of nescience of repeated birth and death. Here it is stated that yogis or mystics cross beyond nescience by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many kinds of mystics, such as the Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yogi. The Karmis particularly search after the favor of the demigods, the Jnanis want to become one with the Supreme Absolute Truth, and the Yogis are satisfied simply by partial vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, and ultimately by oneness with him. But the Bhaktas, the devotees, want to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally and serve him. It has already been admitted that the Lord is eternal, and those who want the favor of the Supreme Lord perpetually are also eternal. Therefore, yogis here mean devotees. By the mercy of the Lord, devotees can easily pass beyond the nescience of birth and death and attain the eternal abode of the Lord. The Lord is therefore not in need of another's favor because no one is equal to or greater than him. Actually, everyone needs the favor of the Lord for successful understanding of his human mission. Text 20. Yam vai vibhutir upaya yati anuvelam anyar artarti bisvas hirasa tritapadarenu danyarpitangri tuasi navadamadamno lokam madhu vrata patir eva kamayana. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, the dust of whose feet is worn on the head by others, waits upon you as appointed, for she is anxious to secure a place in the abode of the king of bees, who hovers on the fresh wreath of tulsi leaves offered at your feet by some blessed devotee. Purport. As previously described, Tulsi has attained all superior qualities due to being placed at the lotus feet of the Lord. The comparison made here is very nice. As the king of bees hovers over the Tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, so Lakshmi, the goddess, who is sought by the demigods, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and everyone else, always engages in rendering service to the lotus feet of the Lord. The conclusion is that no one can be the benefactor of the Lord. Everyone is actually the servant of the Lord. Text 21. Yastam vivikta charitar anuvartmananam natyadriyat parama bhagavata prashanga satvam dvijanupata punyaraja punita Srivatsa Lakshma Kimmaga Bhaga Bhajanastvam. O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your pure devotees. Yet you are never attached to the goddesses of fortune, who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified, therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas? And how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Srivatsa on your chest? Purport. It is said in the Brahma Samhita that the Lord is always served by many hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune in his Vaikuṇṭha planet. Yet because of his attitude of renunciation of all opulences, he is not attached to any one of them. The Lord has 6 opulences: unlimited wealth, unlimited fame, unlimited strength, unlimited beauty, unlimited knowledge, and unlimited renunciation. All of the demigods and other living entities worship Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, just to get her favor. Yet the Lord is never attached to her because he can create an unlimited number of such goddesses for his transcendental service. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is sometimes envious of the tulsi leaves which are placed at the lotus feet of the Lord, for they remain fixed there and do not move. Whereas Lakshmi Ji, although stationed by the chest of her numerous devotees, Lord, sometimes has to please other devotees who pray for her favor. Lakshmi Ji sometimes has to go to satisfy her numerous devotees, but tulsi leaves never forsake their position. And the Lord therefore appreciates the mercy of the Brahmanas that Lakshmi Ji does not leave him. We can understand that Lakshmi Ji is attracted by the opulence of the Lord, but by the Brahmanas' benedictions upon him. The Lord is not dependent on anyone's mercy for his opulence. He is always self-sufficient. The Lord's statement that his opulence is due to the benediction of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is only to teach others that they should offer respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. Text 22. Dharmasyate Bhagavatas Tri Yuga Tribhisvai Adbis Charamidam Dvija Deva Tartam Nunambratam Tad Abhigati Rajas Tamascha Sadvena Novaradaya Tanuva Nirasya. O Lord, you are the personification of all religion. Therefore, you manifest yourself in 3 millenniums, and thus you protect this universe, which consists of animate and inanimate beings. By your grace, which is pure goodness, and is the bestower of all blessings, kindly drive away the elements of Rajas and Tamas for the sake of the demigods and the twice-born. Purport. The Lord is addressed in this verse as Tri-Yuga, or one who appears in 3 millenniums, namely the Satya, Dwarpa, and Treta Yugas. He is not mentioned as appearing in the 4th millennium or Kali Yuga. It is described in the Vedic literature that in Kali Yuga he comes as Chana avatar, or an incarnation, but he does not appear as a manifest incarnation. In the other yugas, however, the Lord is a manifest incarnation, and therefore he is addressed as Tri-Yuga, or the Lord who appears in 3 yugas. Sridhar Swami describes Tri-Yuga as follows. Yuga means couple, and Tri means 3. The Lord is manifested as 3 couples by his 6 opulences, or 3 couples of opulences. In that way, he can be addressed as Tri-Yuga. The Lord is the personality of religious principles. In 3 millenniums, religious principles are protected by 3 kinds of spiritual culture, namely austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. The Lord is called Tri-Yuga in that way also. In the age of Kali, these 3 requisites to spiritual culture are almost absent, but the Lord is so kind that in spite of Kali Yugas being devoid of these 3 spiritual qualities, he comes and protects the people of this age in his covered incarnation as Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is called covered because although he is Krishna himself, he presents himself as a devotee of Krishna, not directly Krishna. The devotees pray to Lord Chaitanya, therefore, to eliminate their stock of passion and ignorance, the most conspicuous assets of this yuga. In the Krishna consciousness movement, one cleanses himself of the modes of passion and ignorance by chanting the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, as introduced by Lord Chaitanya. The four Kumars were cognizant of their situation in the modes of passion and ignorance, because although in Vaikuṇṭha they wanted to curse devotees of the Lord, since they were conspicuous of their own weakness, they prayed to the Lord to remove their still existing passion and ignorance. The three transcendental qualifications, cleanliness, austerity, and mercy, are the qualifications of the twice-born and the demigods. Those who are not situated in the quality of goodness cannot accept these three principles of spiritual culture. For the Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, there are three sinful activities which are prohibited: illicit sex, intoxication, and eating anything other than prasad, food offered to Krishna. These three prohibitions are based on the principles of austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. Devotees are merciful because they spare the poor animals, and they are clean because they are free of contamination from unwanted foodstuff and unwanted habits. Austerity is represented by restricted sex life. These principles, indicated by the prayers of the four Kumars, should be followed by the devotees who are engaged in Krishna consciousness. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 23 on Friday. Before we end, are there any comments or questions from the devotees? No? Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Puri Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju Ki Jai. Ganga Mayi Yamuna Mayi Ki Jai. Davan Dham Ki Jai. Giri Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yagi Ki Jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagi Ki Jai. Jai Princeton Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premananda. Hari Hari Bol. Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai. Our Lord, the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.